Hi, I'm Danny Crouch from Choose Your Chapter, and this is the third episode of Using Strengths to Become a Poker Pro. So a little bit of a recap. Who am I? I live on the Gold Coast in sunny Australia, and I'm a qualified business coach, strengths coach, and mindset coach. Basically, for the last however many years, I've been helping startups get off the ground. I've worked with around 150 businesses in the last 2 or 3 years. And I really want to look at using strengths in reference to the Clifton StrengthsFinder to focus on becoming a professional poker player. Now that's Texas Hold'em. I've been playing very low limit pub poker tournaments for the last 10, 12 years, and I'd like to have a real go at it. So these recordings aren't per se about hand breakdowns and gambling and chip stacks and dissecting different strategies and play. This is more around the mindset and the emotional and psychological roller coaster that I'm going through. So I'm into week 3 of March 2020. So one of my intentions was to stop drinking for the month of March. I've been a heavy drinker, smoker, gambler for the last 30 odd years, at 46 years of age, and I thought if I'm going to give this a red hot crack, how about I get off the alcohol to really make some clear decisions and move forward in where I want to go. So that's basically the intention of these recordings. I'm just going to follow my path over the coming weeks and months, and possibly that may develop into having conversations with other poker players. According to the Clifton StrengthsFinder, we may even look at unpacking other poker players' strengths to see how they use their thoughts, emotions, and behaviours on and off the table. So I'll be talking about mine originally. So a little bit of a background on the Clifton StrengthsFinder. It's a psychometric assessment tool developed by Gallup in the US, and it basically assesses you on your top 34 talents or talent themes. And they basically identify your natural patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior. And they call them talents. And then over time, we develop those talents into strengths, aka using strengths to become a poker pro. So I know my full 34. Most people, they just start out with their top 5. It costs around $20 US, which is about $30, $33 Australian if you're interested. I'll actually put a link in the description of these recordings if you want to click on that, and I can send you out a link to that. I do it manually through their site, but I can then get hold of your results as well, and if you wanted to have a chat with me, we can do so. But going back to me, I tend not to focus on 34. What I actually do, as I said, you can either buy your top 5 or all 34. I like to focus on my top 7. So being born on the 7th of July, being the 7th of 7th, 7 is naturally my favourite number, or my lucky number, lucky for quite a few. However, I also look at the fact that there's 7 days in the week. So I like to focus on one strength per day and really dive into that talent on that given day. So Monday being day 1 of the week, I'll focus on strength 1 all the way through to day 7, which is today, a Sunday, when I do my recordings. And day 7 just happens to be my 7th strength is communication. Now, obviously, everyone can communicate, or the majority of us can communicate in certain ways, but people who are naturally talented in this communication, they connect with words and they like to communicate with others at a higher level. I'm sure you can imagine when you're at school, if it wasn't you, there was someone in the classroom that was always talking. And what tended to happen was that person would obviously get in trouble. But they naturally need to hear things out in the open to digest what's going on. So people like to talk about it so they can actually hear it as much as someone else hearing it. And what happens at school is more often than not, someone high in communication gets into trouble all the time for talking too much. And that can be quite damaging on that person, because then they're told that what they're doing is wrong. They're told they've got to think before they talk. All these common cliches and sayings, which actually puts the person down. So we're going to look at different strengths and how they help us and how they hinder us. And to focus on my top 7 to start with, you'll get an idea of my 7. And as we expand, we'll look at the full 34. So just a quick rundown there. Number 1 is Maximiser. That's Monday. So that's an influencing talent, which allows me to see the good in others, influencing other people and wanting to help them excel and looking for constant excellence. Where that's great for me is I'm always looking for improvement. I'm always looking to make things better. Where it can be a hindrance is I can procrastinate. I can question whether I'm good enough or whether something is at a certain level to move forward. On the poker tables, I may question or doubt whether or not I should be going forward or not. So it can hold me back at certain times. And that constant need for excellence can also hold me back. So I was considering really giving poker a go at the beginning of the year. It actually took me 2 months to get into gear because I had these concerns of whether or not I was good enough. Moving on to Tuesday, which is day 2, is connectedness, which is a relationship building talent. So I'm all about connecting with people. A lot of people who have connectedness quite high, it can tend to be around nature and connecting with nature. However, we like to build bridges. We see connections between people, between things, and more often we live by the motto, everything happens for a reason. So that can really help my Maximiser in the sense that, whatever cards come out on the table is what's meant to be. And it can reduce that opportunity for me to go on tilt, which is beneficial. What I really need to focus on is connecting with others. And I'll go through this a little bit later in this recording about how I feel when I sit down at the casino at the tables and how I'm disconnected because I don't know people and I don't know their game or know them to be able to converse with them. So I sort of internalize myself, which is not good for my connectedness. Number 3 is ideation, which is a strategic thinking strength. So my brain is constantly coming up with ideas. And how that ties into connectedness as well is I more often than not connect these ideas to each other. Where I can really use this at the poker tables is I can connect people to hands and connect myself to certain hands and connect to where they could actually end up going. So I can become creative in the way that I play my hands due to the ideas that I come up with. And that also stems into business and into my relationships and friends and how I connect with others as well. Ideation is a really great tool for me, especially if you can imagine with business startups, helping them develop ideas to grow their business, to move forward, to come up with strategies and marketing ideas that they may not have come up with themselves. And one big thing with ideation, and you may know someone who has high ideation, they've always got plenty of ideas. The worst thing you can do with someone with ideation is tell them why an idea is not good enough. Tell them and focus on a bad idea. We come up with so many ideas, it's just a matter of saying, no, don't like that one, fine. We'll move on and there'll be 100 more. So it's just about accepting that these people are going to come up with idea after idea after idea. They're not offended if they don't like them. Just pick and choose the ones that you do. So for example, if I'm coaching someone, I explain this to them. I explain my strengths and explain the way I work. And I say, look, I won't be offended if you don't follow up on one of my ideas. All I suggest is that you use these ideas as a foundation. And if you come up with a different idea or if you pick and choose one that you like, fantastic. Fourth strength Thursday is Activator. Now this really offsets my Maximiser well when I get stuck or when I'm procrastinating. Activator is another influencing talent, and it helps me get started and it helps me get other people get started. So again, in a startup business environment, it really enables others to get their business off the ground, to jump into the deep end. There's a saying with Activator, we tend to go off ready, fire, aim. So we tend to shoot before we aim at anything and we just jump in. We learn from making mistakes. We learn from getting in there and giving it a really, really great go. Fifth Friday is Futuristic. So this is a strategic thinking strength, but there are 3 timeline sort of talents. Context is all about the past and drawing on what you've done well in the past. Adaptability is all about the present and being in the now and being able to chop and change directions really quickly and adapt to the environment and the situation. And futuristic is all about the next step, what's coming up, where can you see this going? Again, in a business perspective, fantastic for helping startup businesses see where they want to take their business. On the poker tables, I can potentially see where hands may end up, where betting may end up, where if a certain situation goes a certain way, I can foresee what might come of it. So I haven't mastered these talents as yet, so I'm not the perfect futurist. I'm not the perfect connectedness. I'm developing them. So they are talents and they are developing in the strengths. And as you learn more about strengths, you'll see that you fluctuate between a talent and a strength based on the task at hand, how you've developed it, how the environment around you is influencing how that's being developed, and so on and so forth. Number 6 is Saturday is command, another influencing talent. So out of my top 7, I have 4 influencing talents, which are all driven around influencing others. What that means in hindrance is that I can be very heavily influenced. I can be coerced into things, and I've got myself in a lot of trouble in business and investments, just in the sense of my Maximiser has this trust. I can see the value and what's good in something, and the influencers just try and set up a scam, or I can see potential there and they just don't follow through. My responsibility, I'm fully accountable for all the decisions that I've made. It's just I tend not to see weakness, because Maximisers do not like focusing on weakness, which leads into the title of this episode, focusing on weakness. But I'll go into that in a second. So command is about leadership. It's about strength and owning the room and owning the situation. It's not being dominant, but it's being confident. It's very similar to a strength called self-assurance. However, what I find with command, which can really hold me back, is my shortness in tone and in my language, and even in the sense of using absolutes, as in you always, you never, rather than often or hardly ever. And it sounds quite confronting and direct, where never is, well, it's never happened before. But often for me, in my mind and what I'm thinking is certain situations. So in that situation, it would never happen. However, it can still happen throughout the whole world, situation that's going on in my mind. So these recordings are also being very aware of the difference between what goes on in your head and your heart and what's going on out in the real world. How are other people interpreting the information? How are they hearing what you're saying? How are they hearing other information, and how do they interpret it and use that to their benefit or their hindrance? So that's 6, and then 7 is... So they're my top 7 set talents. That's what I'll be focusing on. It's going to be the psychological and emotional steps that I take throughout the week, off the tables and then on the tables. So I also keep a journal, this one here. So each day I write in my daily intentions, and I include in there, for example, it's the 15th of March, therefore my intention is to be alcohol free, and I write down the day number, which is day 15, target being day 31. What happens from there, who knows. I then put intentions down for the day. How many hours of study I want to do, how many hours of this do I want to do, how I want to go through a tournament, or how I want to hold myself at the poker table. If I want to relax, if I want to do this, if I want to do that. What do I intend on doing? It's not a goal. It's not like my intention is to win that tournament. It doesn't mean I have to win that tournament, otherwise I'm a failure. My intention would therefore, rather than be, my intention is to win the tournament, my intention is to be consciously aware and mindful of who I am and how I'm playing, being patient, picking the times, and being very aware of what's going on around the table. If I know that I can focus on those areas, it's going to improve my chances of getting further in the game. So that's where that is. So recap: strengths, credits, intentions. What's happened in the past week. So what I've said in the first 2 recordings was that my intention is to become a pro poker player and play cash games at the casino. And I've been playing pub poker for the past 12 years, doing reasonably well. I'm not by any means the best tournament player. I hold my own. I get some reasonable results. And my intention was to use these low-level pub games as sort of a practice field to study during the week and use all these tactics and strategies at the tournaments. And it was really stuffing up my game because my mind was exploding and I was overthinking things and getting stuck in situations, not knowing what to do and where to do it. And it was actually stuffing up my tournament play and wasn't really benefiting in the cash games. So I mentioned last week that I won the tournament on the Friday, I think it's the 5th or the 6th, where I went with Nick and I just totally forgot about all these strategies, wanted to go back and play my natural game, and I ended up winning the tournament. So in the last couple of days, I thought, what am I doing here? I've been better at tournament players and I'm brand new at cash games. So to me, my strength is tournament play and my lesser strength or weakness is cash games. And what I've been trying to do is focus on the cash games and improve my cash games. So I'm doing the exact opposite of what my intentions are in life is to focus on my strengths. And that doesn't mean ignore your weakness. It means focus on your strength to manage your weakness. So I've been focusing on these cash games, which are my weaker way of playing, and letting my tournaments lack. So I made that decision in a split second and said, actually, let's combine the tournaments and the cash games together and make it an overall game. So really start monitoring how much I've got going out. So tournaments now come into my bankroll. And lo and behold, last Sunday morning, when I did the recording, I was in a negative. When I decided this on Monday, I actually played 2 tournaments on the Sunday, won the Sunday evening tournament, and then on the Monday I did all the calculations and I'm actually ahead, which is a lot further than where I thought I'd be come week 2. And on top of that, cash-wise in the bankroll, it's in a positive, but I've also picked up a $175 buy-in ticket and a $150 buy-in ticket to 50 grand guaranteed tournaments in April and May. So there is so much more value focusing on my strengths. So I'm not just going to play around and try all these different things at the tournaments. I'm actually going to be playing seriously. And what that did, it allowed me to relax a lot more and just play my natural game. And I've picked up on a couple of really good podcasts. One is Just Hands and the other one is Podca. So Just Hands is a couple of American blokes, and I think they're up to about 170 or 200 episodes, and they literally just break down one hand every episode, which is awesome. They play cash games, 1, 3, 2 and 5, and they break down each hand. In Dat Poker, there's 2 Aussie guys. One's a pro, one's a radio DJ, and the pro actually is coaching the DJ on how to become a better 1 and 3 player. So for me, learning 2 brilliant podcasts. Don't talk anywhere near really anything about mindset or psychology, which is what I want to focus on doing. And as I said, to start with, it's going to be about my journey. So that was a really big eye-opener for me, that I was being so counterproductive, focusing on my weakness of cash games. So allowing myself to just relax. I think I played somewhere around 8 or 9 tournaments for March, and I final tabled 3, winning 2 and coming second in the third. In the third final table. So my results speak for themselves. That's a 40% result, cashing twice, which is 25%, first 25% and cashing 40%, which is pretty damn good to me. Even though it's low level, but you still got to get there. You got to get through the luck and play decently. What that then stemmed into, playing Friday and Saturday night at the casino, fantastic. Really had a great time. I was a lot more relaxed because I identified in the tournaments that listening to these podcasts and listening to the coaching of other professional poker players, I'm sitting at the table trying to process all this information as I go. What I decided to do was allow my study to just become subconscious and just play my natural game. And as time goes, my mindset will pick up on things as we go, and I will just naturally become a better player rather than overthinking things. So I'm just allowing things to play out the way they are. And on top of that, I think I've been a little bit too passive at the cash games, and I've started calling flops that I miss and chasing a few more things, betting a bit bigger, and I've been really getting some great results. So that apprehension again, that Maximiser, being hesitant in calling things down, in not betting too much, has been a real eye-opener. So really my mind playing tricks on me. And that's a learning curve. It's not a mistake. It's just something I need to deal with because I'm in a new environment. And this stems into a lot of what's been going on at the casino. So what I've really enjoyed in tournaments over the last 10 years at least is that I tend to know at least 40 or 50% of people in the room. So my connectedness really feeds on that. Connecting with other people, being relaxed, knowing that I'm not going to be judged as much by people that I know. I don't have as much doubt in the decisions that I make, and people know me and know that I can hold my own at the table. So it's a comfortable environment, a much better place for me to be at the moment, where when I go to the casino, it's the complete opposite. And I really identified with this over the last 2 nights, and I've been really consciously aware of it. Friday night, sat down. Again, I'm very quiet because I don't know anyone. Recognised a guy I hadn't seen for a few years. He said hello. Again, the levels dropped a little bit because, hey, there's a connection. Then about 5 minutes in, we had one of the TDs come over. Sorry, not TDs. Floor managers come over, and I knew him from 5 or 6 years ago. So again, second connection. Just put my mind at ease. A little bit more relaxing. Wasn't as highly strung. So I just sort of eased into that game. I identified that it wasn't an extremely strong game, which is good for me emotionally, because I don't want to feel under pressure or stressed out that, hey, I've got to start with my A game and I've got to start perfectly. Otherwise, people are going to question me. They're going to think I'm an idiot. They're going to think I'm some fish. Lo and behold, what happens last night? I cannot believe the start that I had. I was misreading hands. I rivered a boat and called that I had nothing and turned him over. I missed a straight that a bloke hit, and even in a chop pot, the bloke took his bet back, and I thought, hang on, there's no way you won that, and I called him out on it, and they said, oh, chop pot. So in the first half an hour, 45 minutes, it really hit home with me. That fear of not being good enough, that Maximiser going, oh, see, I told you, maybe you're not good enough to be doing this. So it just, me personally, takes me to this whole level of putting pressure on myself. It's not pressure from other players. It's not pressure from your bankroll. It's internal pressure within me. And it's just purely because I don't have those connections. My Maximiser is saying, come on, you've got to be better than this, and really putting the pressure on. And I'm just doing it to myself and creating this whole problem for myself. So I've identified the starts that I have. I've got to be a lot more relaxing. And within an hour or so, a couple of people I knew turned up, had a chat to them. I even had a guy sit next to me for a good hour or so, could have a conversation with him, and that really settled things down. And as soon as my emotions were in check, and as soon as I could just relax, things started to play well. And yes, the cards started to fall well, but that's what connectedness is about. Everything happens for a reason. And I doubt whether or not, if those cards had fallen at the beginning, whether I would have played that well. I remember one of the first hands that I played, I had ace queen and the big blind, and I literally froze and said, oh, should I be raising here? Which, yes, I should. But I had this question of, what are these guys going to think? They're going to think I'm raising stupidly, blah, blah, blah. So I just ended up checking, and that ended up being the hand that we split, because it came out with a ace, king, jack, jack. So he had an ace as well. Silly. But anyway, nonetheless. So that's all about fitting in. So the more I play at the casino, the more I'm going to get to know the people, the more comfortable and relaxed I'm going to be. And of course, without the alcohol, it's a little bit harder to be that relaxed. And I think that's what I've used in the past. Alcohol has been that ability to just chill me out and relax me. I don't smoke dope, so I'm never going to turn to that to relax me. I know a lot of people do that, and that helps them. So that's the poker side of stuff, and I've just got to be mindful of time. What I did also want to discuss is, I've been talking to a new client of mine who's a mentee. He's coming through the uni ranks. I haven't introduced him to strengths yet. I'm just taking him through the basics of where I start. And I always start with why. Simon Sinek, Start With Why. It's a video. Check it out on YouTube. I think it's one of the second or third highest TED Talk ever spoken. But basically it talks about passion and purpose and why you want to do things. So this guy, I hope he doesn't mind me saying, I'm sure he doesn't, I'm not going to drop his name. He's a uni student studying sports management, and he wants to become a high-profile soccer coach. Now, soccer being a very financial game, you could get lost in the whole, I want to make millions of dollars or millions of pounds in England or whatever, and that's why I want the claim to fame. Sent him over this information. He went through it and really dug deep and came up with this great why. Which I'll leave with him, but that's where I'm trying to focus on. Where is my passion towards this game? And what I've identified is I just really want to excel at something. And again, that's my Maximiser. I want to be good at something, and I want to enjoy doing what I do. I've been on and off self-employed for the last 25 years, and I love being in control of my hours. I love being in control of being able to be where I want, when I want. And poker is a passion of mine. It's strategic, it's deep thinking, it's influencing others. It just really thrives into my strengths, which I really, really love. Next step, and this is what I do with all my clients as well, is when looking at goal setting, I look at lead measures. And this is something that really helps me get to where I want to get to. And it helps me blend in my strengths each day of the week. So lead measures in reference to lag measures, and lag I know is another poker term, but in reference to this, a lag measure is a goal. And the example we tend to use is weight loss. So if you're 100 kilos or 200 pounds and you want to get to 80 kilos or 160 pounds, your goal is to lose 20 kilos. Now, if you stand on the scales now, you're 100 kilos. In a week's time, if you stand on the scales and you're 100 kilos, bad luck, you can't do anything. That's the lag measure. You can only measure on what you've got right there in the moment. The lead measure is then what can you do during that week to achieve that goal. So what I always focus on are the lead measures. How can I get to where I want to get to? So the lead measures I basically set, obviously playing poker, tournaments and cash games. It is to play a minimum of 4 tournaments a week, which at the moment are Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and then there's 2 games on Sunday. And for example, this week on Tuesday, it is St. Patrick's Day, so there won't be a tournament there, so I can pick one up on Monday, or I've already had variants there for 5 tournaments, so I can either play 4 or 5. Casino hours. So this isn't about money. This isn't about winning a certain number of hands or making a certain amount of money. This is about putting the hours in. So at the moment, on a Friday and Saturday night, I'm averaging around 7 or 8 hours. I managed 5 hours last night and 3 hours on Friday. Friday being I played a tournament from 6:30 to 10:30, 9:30. 10 o'clock was at the casino, played until 1. So I got my 8 hours in, and I'm being very mindful of my mental state. And for some reason, and I don't know whether the alcohol has anything to do with it, I'm getting a lot more tired. When I was drinking, I'd be out till 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and managing it quite well. Now, and I'm assuming it's the deep concentration and thought process I'm going through for that long period of time that is really wearing me out. But my internal clock is still waking me up at 6:30, so I tend to be getting like 5 or 6 hours sleep. So I'm incorporating a fair bit of meditation in there. And on the days I can, I'm slipping in some naps in the afternoon, just trying to get that 40 minutes, 1 hour of relaxed meditative sleep. And on top of that is study. So at the moment with that podcast that I found, Just Hands, my focus is to do 8 hands a day, which takes about 2 or 3 hours. I listen to 4 days a week. So obviously I've got tournaments 2, 3 days a week. I've got weekends and so on and so forth. So they're my lead measures. This is where I'm going. I hope you enjoy it. Again, as I've said in the past, I have no idea whether anyone's going to ever listen to this. This is also for me to be accountable to. I like to listen back to it, check out my body language, my tone, how engaging it is, where it can go, where it can come from. So if you have any questions, have any answers, if you want to know anything specific about strengths or the type of coaching we do or the mindset or the psychological side of stuff, you can reach us through the YouTube channel if that's where you're watching us. Comment on there. All through the podcast, you might find there's a place to put comments, and please, by all means, leave a review, hopefully 5 stars if you think it's worthy. And then if you really want to get in touch with me, you can email me at danny@chooseyourchapter.com.au. That's DANNY, Danny, at chooseyourchapter. Choose your chapter as in book chapter. So choose the chapter of life you wish to live. .com.au, and you can reach us there. Outside of that, I think we're coming up to the 30 minutes. So looking forward to another great week. I hope you do the same. Please leave a comment or review, and hopefully I'll look forward to hearing from you. But as for that, remember, I'm Danny Crouch from Choose Your Chapter, and focus on your strengths. Bye for now.